working class rising up. This is the ruling class punching down.
My day bigger your day.
First rule of gladiator school, bro. Don't punch down.
Charging into a goblin.
Hail Trump!
The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
Control your own body.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
We can fight the entire grinding system. Nobody can. But together, everybody can.
I did nothing wrong.
Hello and welcome to Did Nothing Wrong Live, the show that cuts through the noise and helps you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff, and with me are Karl and Jay McKenzie. In today's episode, Trump finally puts a leash on Elon, Gavin Newsom sets his political career on fire, and Hakeem Jeffries has a really big sad about the members of his caucus, quote, going beyond traditional protest tactics, unquote. Keep listening to learn more, and remember to smash those like and subscribe buttons like Gavin Newsom just smashed his chances for the 2028 Democratic nomination. Guys, it was an interesting cabinet meeting. Trump finally, as Jay has been predicting for a minute now, finally had to do something about Elon, finally decided it was time to, put the hand down, put the gun on him, and you cabinet officials, you control your own employees, not this guy.
Yeah, I'm not exactly taking a victory lap right now because it doesn't necessarily. I'm going to argue Karl's point here because it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Look, here's the thing. The Trump administration and their lawyers have been arguing in court because, of course, there's several ongoing court cases related to Doge. They have been arguing in court that Elon, the unelected billionaire head of this imaginary department that they renamed and let him take over. No. They're arguing in court. Elon's not in control. He's not in charge, even though it's not even really a secret.
Well, Trump said it during the State of the Union.
Well, that's the thing. Up until this point, they've been arguing that Elon is not running it. And then Trump gives his speech and he just cannot help himself because the word vomit just sprang through because he needed to remind everyone and tell everyone that the richest man in the world works for him. And Elon Musk isn't the president. I'm the president. And Elon works for him. And Trump just had to do his little flex. It's the same reason you had the oligarchs, the Bezos and Zuckerberg and Tim Cook at the inauguration. Like, Trump loves this. He loves being important and mattering. So he just couldn't help himself. He had to say it. He went against all of everything that they had been saying and arguing in court. And so now they had to take a step back and say, oh, no, yeah, well, Elon, we did admit Elon runs it, but it doesn't matter because he doesn't have power to hire or fire, or he's not really the one who's doing all of these things. It's the department heads. Elon's just there, like this thing that everyone knows is happening.
He's a mascot. He's like
it hasn't been happening. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, he's running it, but it's really just this, this fun little thing he's doing. Don't even worry about it.
He's like the Shiba on the logo. Yeah.
I mean, you are arguing my point on this one, which whatever. Frankly, I think it's all on paper, right? Like this isn't like you're saying, Jay. Like this just doesn't matter.
It doesn't. At
the end of the day,
it might, but it's a question of ego. Like, can even just pretending, can Elon pretend that he doesn't have the power that he has, and how long can he keep that up? And if he can't keep that up, it's all about friction. Like the friction has started. It's getting worse. Where does it lead? We don't know, but this is, I don't know. It's a link in the chain.
Well, there's a lot, and there's a lot moving here, right? Like how much of this is kayfabe versus like reality? How much of this is Maggie Haberman at the Times, like getting inside scoops and like running, No,
we got Maggie. We got some stuff.
And you got Haberman out here doing what she does best, which is access reporting that is obscure at best, let's say. And, we just don't know exactly what the hell is real in this so-called argument, right? So 2 weeks ago, roughly, Musk's personal security got deputized by the U.S. Marshal Service, right? And then they all together went into the U.S. African Development Foundation, right? And so he had Marshal deputized security bust into one of the agencies, right? And that's kind of driven, I think, some of this added scrutiny that's probably getting Trump and them kind of concerned, because now the U.S. African Development Foundation is suing outright, and some of that's because they did the no and said his name during the State of the Union, which brilliant strategery. But the other part is he's starting to overstep actual bounds where we're seeing massive pushback, right? We're seeing such massive pushback that the Republicans have said that they're going to stop holding town halls. You've got people like Tim Walz out here saying he's going to hold town halls in their place. And then you have other Democrats who are shitting the bed just as badly in similar ways for different reasons. And this has just turned into even it just being this farce with Musk. The weight of all of this is starting to push stuff around in really fundamental ways. And the kayfabe part is so dangerous because it's nothing more than really just water pushing around sand, right? If he gets sued, he gets sued. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It's not, little Marco Rubio getting his spine handed to him because he wasn't, going the right direction is just how this is going to be. So the palace intrigue, interior fighting, I don't know if that matters anymore. I think we just look at what's happening, right? And it's so hard because you have 950,000 things happening every second, and some of them contradict each other.
And it is it is funny how just him, Trump saying it out loud is a problem. It's just
changed the dynamic.
Instantly they had to adjust, they had to shift. Yep. And Trump is going to do that. This is the thing. Trump and Musk are both going to do this because Trump cannot keep his mouth shut. He cannot follow a script. It doesn't matter how great a speech Miller writes for him. Trump is always going to ad lib and say shit he shouldn't say. And Musk is going to reply to tweets he likes. It doesn't matter if it's a Nazi or what this person has done or what it's implying or who it's going against. If he thinks, oh, shiny object, retweet, he's going to do it. So that is going to keep changing things. And look, all the problem here, because of these court cases, I mean, it seems pretty clear that illegal things are happening. Probably multiple illegal things all at once.
Showering down. Showering down.
It's not the question of is it happening? It's, is it going to matter? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until it does matter.
Yeah.
So there's push and pushback going on. I don't know how long it's going to last, but
we're seeing it, right? We're seeing the pushback in some of how it's being handled, which is to go after the lawyers. And that's never historically gone well, right? They're just starting to compound their own problems because the Trump open mouth syndrome is starting to be it's starting to blow away some of the obscurity to the criming that's happening all over. And the lawyers, as much as I dislike a lot of attorneys, just because attorneys, I'm sorry, you know what you've done. That's just the reality. You don't go after attorneys. If there's one group that believes in ethics and keeping things together, it's the rule of law folks, because they understand it's a contract where we have to trust that the law is working. And so they've actually done that somewhat well, as poorly as it's sometimes been demonstrated. And so it's really, I mean, going after the Bar Association in DC, going after, the executive order that went out yesterday, right? Going against a single law firm that is a crime that was recognized in the late 1700s to be a crime. Because you don't do that, because that's not how this works, and it's not how rule of law works. It's not how a president.
Well, and this was, what is it? I don't know how to pronounce it. Perkins Coie. Yeah, Perkins Coie, because this is all about revenge, and Trump just has to take out his revenge because Russia was a hoax and these people were involved and I'm still mad about it. So now we're not going to have anything to do with them. Yeah,
Right.
it's
And Perkins
because
Coie
he
is
can't.
not some little shop. They're not some mom and pop ambulance chaser outfit. They are one of the
No.
biggest law firms in the country, if not in the world. They are
Mhm.
massive and they have the money to fight back, and they will.
Well, and so a bill of attainder, right, is pretty much what Trump did with the executive order. I'm not a law person. I know enough, though, after being around them, that you don't do that if you are actually trying to not get into a fight of the century against the foundations of law, right? And so, this is actually, we're seeing Trump's reaction, but also the whole ball game right there in what they're actually trying to do, which is this is revenge, but then there's the added Trojan horse attack. And it seems that that's what's gone on across the board this time around is it's not just executive orders and individual actions, it's stuff nested together. So the actual impact is far greater than just what is getting reported initially. Because I think, what we saw in the first Trump term was that reporting broke people and made things happen against them. And so I think they've seen this as a way to do both, create friction for the news to, focus on, but also hit their goal in a really specific way. And that Musk, fight, quote unquote, in the White House, combined with this kind of stuff, it's just a very interesting glimpse, I think, at what's turning into not just a strategy, but a kind of worldview where they can use these things and kind of push things around and then see where they need to apply maximal pressure. It's very much the 1999 Putin's friends in venture capital and in, kind of the oligarchy world of Russia and world finance, setting up the rules.
Well, and we saw a jobs report come out this last week that was just dismal. We were 273% up in terms of lost jobs from the last jobs report. We have 150,000 lost jobs. 65,000 of those were government jobs as a result of Elon and his budget cuts. At some point, the trickle down is going to land on everyone's head. We are going to have a recession, and there's really no way around it at this point.
And they're trying so hard to still blame it all on Biden.
I know,
and that's already running really thin. I went to the grocery store today, and there were no eggs. There were no eggs.
Trump took your eggs too.
Yeah, Trump
took egg.
Trump take egg. Trump take egg.
Trump take egg.
And that's like the last 2 months. Yeah, I think I've gone once, twice where they've had eggs, and that's been it. And the price was
astronomical.
3 times, 3, 4, 5 times what it should be. It's insane. And then it's gone the next day. Like it's. And I saw Elon tweeting about this. Oh, Biden slaughtered all the chickens before he left office. I'm like, so we're just ignoring bird flu and Biden just went out there personally with like a hacksaw just murdering chickens. That's the way he left. And like this stuff, it plays on Twitter when you've gamed the entire algorithm to make every post you make go viral. But like real people, it's not going to work.
Buying this.
It's not going to work.
I'm not buying this.
I mean, it's been interesting seeing some of the response, right? Like, because there are people who truly do believe this Biden called the world birds and all this shit, right? But the other part is like people are starting to realize, I think, that this time is different in a fundamental way, which is that people are starting to not think about the political goals anymore as explicitly on the ground as much. They're talking about realities that they are going to have to overcome.
Right.
And that's a real big difference, right? Like in 2016, it was politics and that's all it was. And you were overreacting if you thought he was a fascist, all this, even though he is, will be forever. And now it feels different. It feels like people are looking more at resilience in the long term, not in the thought of an election's going to save us. I think, stuff's starting to shift in real different ways than it has in the past. And I think that's also looking at that thing that you're talking about. right? Like material impacts are already kind of horrifyingly comic, where it's just like we make jokes about Trump take ag, we're making jokes about Trump take economy, we're making all these jokes because the reality is, for many of us in this country who are who have been in the US their entire lives, they've never seen a US that is more interested in taking away from you than what it can even attempt to give back. And that's very much a white, middle class view. But the reality is, for a lot of people in this country, that's the thing that's going to shake them. Unfortunately, they're not going to do the hard work of maybe doing justice work or understanding why all these other things are happening, the historic work. But, people are starting to shift, and we can see it, right? Like that rage that we kind of were talking about last week and have seen at town halls. This is starting to swing across the board. And it's a real, you not all of it's acknowledging that this is a class problem, not a politics problem, but you're starting to see the sparkles and the lightning bolts that it takes to kind of get people to start saying, wait a second, it's the wealth. And it's not my neighbor who's also struggling.
It's the money, stupid.
It's the wealthy. And it's the money, stupid. Right. Exactly. And like, that's the thing. I think, we're starting to see a real change, and it's why we're seeing the corporate Democrats and other groups. The schisms are starting. Because the real power for most people isn't looking at technocratic neoliberal solutions. It's looking at who the fuck gives me eggs back at a reasonable price and can guarantee I get them week to fucking week. That's it. It's that kind of shit. And technocratic, we're going to bill your taxes differently to provide you with a tax incentive to get eggs from a consumer source that isn't in the food. Fuck off, right? Like, that's not how you do it. You have to come up with something that's
Trump saying
easy.
Right. And the other fuck off is Trump saying, well, you should just raise your own chickens. It's like,
exactly.
Have you done the math?
Exactly.
I mean, fucking hey, guy. That's nice. I live in an apartment building. What the fuck do you want me to do and raise chickens? Seriously.
Well, exactly. That's just it, right? Like, this is an assumption coming from a very specific view of America that is the rural or suburban, somewhat suburban view that, like, yeah, you can just raise your own food. We have chickens. And it's like, this is emblematic of both problems.
Well,
right?
and
greed of the society. Fundamentally,
eggs are the thing now, but it's not going to stop with eggs. Like, that's part of it too, is, okay, you can have your own chickens and they can lay eggs and you can eat those. But like, then what do you do when everything costs 50% more? Or what do you do, like, when, because these tariffs, these not tariffs, go ahead.
Can you grow your own penicillin?
or microchips? You got to make your own microchips. So
Right. And that's it, right? Like, they're pushing this bizarre super atomization of hyper modernity, and the rest of us are like, community might actually be easier on this one, guys. Sorry, like, maybe we don't need to reinvent how to be a civilization to benefit you. And it's really interesting seeing that, because it's starting to really, it's clicking with voters that, like, this isn't just politics now. This is a world that's trying to be.
Well, in 2016, that was a shock to the system for all of us. And it was a question of, okay, what do we do now? We can't have this. We can't let this get worse. And it was, we can fight back through conventional means. But you're right. Now there is no political solution, because who are you going to vote for? I mean, honestly, who are you going to vote for at this point that's actually going to help you? Anyone who watched Trump's speech to Congress is not gonna...
I'll vote for Al Green.
I'll vote for Al Green.
Anything that man wants to run for. Anything that man wants to run for.
You will hold up a paddle. I was thinking about the paddle thing, and it's like they look like a bunch of hoity-toity rich people at an auction. Like, good. I paid $3 million for that painting. I don't know what it's called, but it looks very nice. Oh, you say a Russian oligarch is selling it? Well, $4 million. I mean, it's like,
no, it's the worst possible optics. It's across the board.
It's worse. Yes, it's nothing. It's sad. It's pathetic. It's weak. They look Trump. I mean, for those of you who don't watch the speech, but
Yeah, don't.
I think
Don't
all
do
three
it.
of us watched it.
It bummed
I
me
mean,
the
don't.
fuck out. I watched
Trump
it. Yes.
just bullied the Democrats. He
Mhm.
bullied them. He laughed at them. He mocked them. He had a great time. He loved it. And the only person who even tried to disrupt that was Al Green.
Yeah.
And they kicked him out, unlike when MTG and Lauren Boebert and others have heckled Democrats in the past. They didn't get kicked out, but Al Green got kicked out. I mean, it did not take long for that to happen. And then the rest of the Democrats sat there and just took it. They just took it.
Like
and
meek little
maybe
sheep.
they didn't. Yes, it's weak. It's pathetic.
Well,
And they think if they accept their punishment and they just sit there long enough and they just get raked over the coals, that everything is going to go to shit. But their billionaire donors are gonna wait around and they're gonna say, "Oh, these Republicans, gosh, they're just crazy. They're radical. We need somewhere safe to put our money. Oh, look at that Hakeem Jeffries fellow. He looks like that looks like a safe bet. I'll go give him some money." And then Hakeem Jeffries can become king of the ashes based on the billionaire donors that are going to line up, as if in 6 months or 4 years or whenever there's going to be anything left to be king of.
Well,
But
right. I mean,
that's the plan. It's a terrible plan.
It's the natural end state for neoliberalism, right? Like we're seeing what theater in place of politics does in the face of actual power.
Mhm.
And it's holding up fucking placards looking like you're bidding on the fire sale of democracy. And that's a mess, right? Like they've jumped the shark now in a pretty profound way on that side. And for all of us, like, I think we have to really understand that the future is going to be in our neighborhoods and in our cities and in our locations much more than it's going to be on the national scale. Because frankly, if they do continue this route, there isn't going to be much left of the national scale. And we're going to find out what a true frontier, world looks like in 2025, where people are back defending for themselves as neighbors, communities, and individuals. That's not a good place for any of us to be.
Right. Because we've got Hakeem Jeffries getting so mad at his own caucus that actually said anything that per Axios, he's yelling at people about not using traditional forms of protest and how this was like undignified. You go back through that man's website and you find his statements in the wake of January 6th, where he's talking about like every minute Trump remains in office is a threat to democracy. What happened? What changed?
What if
why
they
now?
don't want? If they didn't want us to be pissed off, if they didn't want us to be looking around and saying "fuck you, do better," then maybe they should have toned down the rhetoric. Maybe they shouldn't have run on he's a fascist and he's going to destroy everything.
Even though
then he wins,
and
they were right.
Yeah.
And then he does it, and then he does it, and they just sit there like meek, sad, weak little sheep. It is pathetic. It is pathetic.
This is the problem, right? Like we've gotten to a point where the center will not hold, cannot, it literally can't. And what we're seeing is, this idea that the Democrats were ever going to actually be able to mount a sustained national defense is probably wrong. What's really going to happen is what we're starting to see, which is governors, whether that's Pritzker, whether that's Tim Walz and others, starting to set up and talk with foreign leaders and do their own versions of foreign policy in a way that is somewhat legal, it seems. I'm not entirely sure, considering there are some things out there that like should theoretically curb this.
There's a lot of that going around.
Right. There's a lot of that going around. But I think what we're gonna see is, we're gonna start to see states that really understand it push back in really different ways. And there's not going to be a uniform like block of Democrats who are, anti-fascist. That's for goddamn sure. Because we've seen, like, ultimately this all comes back to the real argument, which is like wealth and fascism and authoritarianism are always going to side together. And for all of us, we're seeing the outcome of that, right? And we're seeing now a fracture and what probably will turn into a major schism in the party. The Democrats specifically, that's going to be between this idea that you can moderate against and with a certain kind of capital against a different form when that's just not the case. We know that's not the case. And you're going to have another part of the party that decides that we're going to go back to the roots And the roots means wealth. Wealth is a problem. And this isn't going to, like, I think people have really forgotten that this country up until 40 years ago had a pretty reliable, voting core that literally was anti-capital in the way that we understand capital now. And that is something that if you really wanted to keep the machine rolling, like global capital in the way that it's been formulated, you don't want to piss those people off. And now people are looking for something different. And we're getting into clean sweep territory. If there's ever a meaningful election again, we're getting into clean sweep territory where Democrats are going to find out that the population really fucking hates them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem for them because they don't get it. Like certain groups in the Democratic Party get it, certain reps get it, but like overall, the DNCC, for example,
No.
they don't get it. And
here's the thing though, with Harris's campaign, with the 2024 election, the problem was not that they didn't have money. They had money, they had donors, they had the message
Billions
sucked.
of dollars.
And they had the Cheneys. That
the
was
the message.
Cheneys.
Like they had all of this money, they had all of these ads, and the message was shit. And it doesn't matter, Hakeem, how long you just sit there and take it and keep sternly looking as if real centrism has never been tried.
Yeah,
and like just keep pushing, just hang in there, buddy. That money's gonna get you through. It doesn't matter how much money you have if your message is I'm a weak little bitch who's not gonna do anything. And that is what people are sick of, and they're not going to take. And you can call us far left agitators, and you can complain to Axios. Per sources, they're real mad. They're not real mad at Trump. They have no energy or ability to be angry at Trump. They are angry at people who don't sit there and take it like them, because we just have to wait it out. Yeah, wait it out until you have no power, until the Constitution has been ripped to shreds and burned, and there is nothing left for you to grab hold of.
Well, that's it. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. That's literally it. Like, and you said it earlier. Why would you want to be the king of ash? Why? There's no reason behind this beyond that there is something fundamentally wrong with the party at the highest levels, that it's not an unwillingness, just an unwillingness. There seems to be a literal concerted effort to keep those who are actually willing to say the damn thing and do the fighting the way that it needs to be done away from the ability to say that. And, when you have 10 Democrats voting to censure Al Green for holding up his cane and screaming at a Nazi speech, I'm sorry, but you've lost the fucking plot in a profound and dangerous way.
Let's mention that, because I think it's important to say which 10 Democrats voted to censure Al Green, because fuck you. A big fuck you goes out to California Representative Amy Barra. A big fuck you goes out to Hawaii Representative Ed Case. Another fuck you to California Rep Jim Costa, New York Rep Laura Gillen, Connecticut Rep Jim Himes, go fuck yourself. Pennsylvania Rep Chrissy Houlihan, fuck you. Ohio Rep Marcy Kaptur. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Defend democracy.
Yeah,
Florida Rep Jared Moskowitz, fuck you as well.
Shocking.
Yeah.
I am shocked that corporate piece of shit did that. I'm shocked.
Oh, yeah, I know. Washington Rep Marie Glusenkamp Perez.
She doesn't want to run against Joe Kent again. She's worried about her next election against, Portland Joe, Proud Boy Joe.
Look,
CIA Joe.
One more is New York Rep Tom Swoozy. Swoozy. Yeah, okay. So really great, guys. You voted because somebody did something and it made you we just can't have that. We just can't do anything.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
The guys who sign your checks are mad. I'm sorry.
I hope
fucking off into the sun about it.
I hope 77-year-old Al Green with his cane, I hope he learned his lesson. I hope
I'm sure he did. I'm sure
Well,
he
I
did.
think he learned the same lesson that he probably knew already, which is white moderates are fucking dangerous. And we've had this speech in hand for about 60 years now that the white moderate and capital together were kind of a dangerous combo, and we're seeing it, right? And I think that's the hardest part for a lot of us, especially those of us like us and others who have spent years watching the far right, is we're also starting to see the other part of it, which is that the liberals were fundamentally not just ill-equipped. Neoliberalism turned them into a fucking hotbed, uh, compost that this shit could grow out of really, really well, because they understood fundamentally that the money was the power and the power was literally corruption.
Yeah.
And if you know that, well, it's pretty easy to fucking exploit, especially if you've got a party where, literally members recently have been caught with gold bars and everyone's just like, yeah, I can't really do anything about that. That's crazy. You just had gold bars in your shirt pockets. That's wild, man.
Dude.
Good job. Like it's if you know that, you've got the ticket in. And we're seeing what that looks like. And we're seeing too that there is pushback in certain parts of the party, and certain membership parts of the party seem to be better off than others. And with Pritzker, with Walz, with
Ferguson out of Washington is
exactly,
carrying himself
Washington's
pretty well.
governor we're starting to see the blocks. Then we're starting to see other things like Gavin Newsom giving a big old hug to a fascist propagandist who literally has ties to some of the gnarliest and most outrageous right-wing extremism on the planet.
We talked about this. The man wants to cancel the Civil Rights Act. He straight up says there's problems with the Civil Rights Act. We need to roll this thing back. He wants to cancel Martin Luther King. He and old Jack Posobiec got on his program and ranted about it. It is a stated goal of theirs to roll everything back basically to the 1950s. And so what does Gavin Newsom, this moderate white governor of California, do? He wants to, reinvent himself because he's got an election he thinks he's going to run in 2028. So he's going to do a podcast, right? And his first episode of his podcast, he's going to do something controversial to show he's willing to listen to both sides. He's going to find somebody kind of, edgy to go and find. And he goes and finds Charlie fucking Kirk. TP USA Charlie Kirk. And like,
Joseph Goebbels was unavailable. So
common ground, like, I guess Poso could have had Poso. I'm sure that would have been good, but more people probably know who Charlie Kirk
and
is.
I'm sure he would have loved it. It's unbelievable.
Fuck me. It's like, is this real life? Who do you think you're appealing to? Here?
This is your centrism, right? Centrism is normalizing it. Charlie Kirk, who's about, yes, okay, he looks like he's a good Christian boy who's just got some morals and upstanding values that he can just get behind. He's a hate figure. I mean, he has demonized trans people probably more than anyone in this country or the world. Maybe Lids of TikTok, Shia Raichik, maybe has done it more. But Charlie Kirk, look, every time there has been a school shooting, right? Charlie Kirk is the first one to ask, are they trans?
Yes.
Every time. And Gavin Newsom, the beacon of hope for centrism and the future of boring bullshit.
Threw trans folks under the bus. Yeah. And literally is now pissed off because people are rightly saying, what the fuck are you doing? And people said the same thing after the videos of him sweeping homeless encampments came out. Like, the dude is bad. His ideas are bad. He's a bad person. And this cannot be the future for the party. And it won't be.
No.
Frankly,
no one wants this. No one wants this.
No.
It doesn't matter how hard you push to the center and try to, you're really just pushing further right. Because if you're gonna have a conversation where Charlie Kirk pushes against you, and instead of fighting him, instead of arguing with him, you say, "Oh, that's a good point. Oh, you're right. Oh, he wouldn't even call it." He tried to call the trans issue with Charlie Kirk. He tried to say that Trump weaponized it, and Charlie took offense with that word, so he changed it. He stopped using weaponize, and he said highlight.
Highlight.
Yeah. Oh, highlight.
Highlight.
Yes.
Not weaponized.
Because
Highlight.
we can't even criticize something. We can't even. I mean, it's the right word to use, but we can't even, because that
Can't
might
even call shit what it is.
weaponizing it implies that there was something untoward going on.
Exactly.
And, well,
Huh?
this fascist coup that's going on, that's not untoward. We wouldn't want to get. Whew, I'm not ready for that
dude,
conversation.
We could get sued if we use the wrong words. Is the wrong approach to a fascist takeover of your country. All I'm going to say is that doesn't actually do shit but prove that you're unable to step up. And I think it's been funny in the gallows humor kind of way, watching as these corporate ghouls collectively commit career suicide over literally having a fucking soul and just saying other humans can't be illegal because they're fucking humans. You're a demon for saying it. What are you doing? Because you know what? The first person to say this is an evil thing to say, these people will lose their ever loving fucking minds and will destroy themselves the more you do it. But no. I can't say weaponizing transphobia to a fucking Nazi propagandist because it might offend my fucking attorney's sensibilities. Get the absolute fuck out of all politics.
Yeah.
And go sit in a boardroom.
Well, and I was willing to hear.
Fuck up.
I was willing to hear Newsom out for 2028. I was willing. Okay, I don't know. There's plenty of things that I don't like that he's done, but okay, we can have that conversation. And now I will actively campaign against you.
Exactly.
Fuck you,
Exactly.
you sad sack piece of shit. I know there's
That's
a lot of cursing on this
Are
episode.
the
Sorry, but this
official
is
anybody but Newsom podcast?
yeah.
Fuck
Anybody
anyone.
else? Anybody?
Almost anyone else.
Well,
Almost
yeah.
anyone else.
Someone who will
over
fight.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Someone who will fight. And look, the path forward, the Democratic Party, third party eventually gets made, whatever it is going to have to be people who fight. Because if you're not willing to fight, just go away. Just give up. It's done. You're not up for this. This is not what you signed up for. Go get your corporate job and this is not for you. Okay? That's fine. Hakeem Jeffries,
be a fucking lobbyist.
Yeah, this
Go
is
be
not
a
what you thought politics would be when you got started 20 years ago, whatever. Fine. Go do something else. You can make plenty of money.
Go lobby until we make it illegal.
Yeah.
That's coming.
Like that's what's you want to see the future? Go lobby until we make it illegal. Go lobby.
They think this is going to blow over.
Oh no.
Yeah.
This is
and they really believe that no, people are pissed.
It does.
People want blood. They understand that what's happening is illegal. It's wrong. And I'm slamming my fists on my desk right now.
And it's
look,
evil. And it's evil.
Keep saying it. Keep saying you're mad. You're upset. Your feathers are ruffled because people are being mean out there, and we're not going to be mean to Mr. Trump. We have to respect Mr. Trump.
I'm going to say something very respectful about this. Fuck off into the sun with that. We're not doing that again. It's what got us here in the first place. We actually have to be the adults in the room and hold people fucking accountable. Whether that's for illegality, immorality, in the sense that you're treating other people like they're fucking subhuman. You don't get to do that. In 2025, we're done with that. We're throwing that shit away. Doesn't matter if you're blue, red. I don't care what your politics are. Humans are humans. They get some fucking dignity. Have a fucking soul. And that is a non-starter. If we don't start there, we're not doing the right work. And at the end of the day, if the party can't acquiesce to that because their capital funding would get fucked up, well, you know what? We'll fund it ourselves. That's how we did this until your corporate friends took over and turned it into a fucking profit game, not a politics game. What gets me that this is the scary thing, right? We actually have a chance here to do something different. And that scares the pants off of people whose entire life is caught up in keeping this the exact fucking same. And we're done. They've lost that race. It's over.
They did. You know what bothers me the most about the Gavin Newsom thing, I think? That he mentioned that his 13-year-old son is a big fan of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Like, why are you, as a Democratic politician, not pushing back on that?
Yeah.
Why are you letting your kid watch this stuff? I mean, would you have Andrew Tate on if your 13-year-old kid was a big fan of Andrew Tate? Because there's a lot of 13-year-olds who are big fans of Andrew Tate. We all saw the footage of the 13-year-olds sucking up to Sneeko at the airport.
Right.
You know, this is like, why are you not pushing back on this? Why are you not saying, look, maybe you think this guy's presentation is cool or something, but let's talk about why Charlie Kirk is fucked up. Let's talk
Right.
about why this is a terrible idea. Let's
Well,
talk about values. What are you
if
doing?
Oh,
exactly. This is it's one of those things. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking about the last 3 books I can think of by Charlie Kirk, right? And I'm just thinking books. Fuck his written, his spoken shit, all of that. You have Right Wing Revolution, you have what is it, Campus Battlefields, and you have The College Scam. If my kids are listening to those, there's a long conversation coming about why and how the hell you fell into that when the reality is something that you know is different.
Yeah.
but
How are
rather
you
than
paying that
having,
little... Go ahead.
but rather than having a conversation with his kid, he's having a podcast
Yes.
episode with Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
Because the one thing these people don't want to do is spend time with their family. They want, they don't care. Like children, your
Business comes
child
first.
is,
It's business comes first, right?
Yes,
And that's
yeah.
the problem, right? This is business comes first as a fucking political model, and it's not politics because it can't be. So what you remove is the humanity from the equation, as we've seen, and you can't keep doing that because the minute you do that one step further, well, why is it snowing in July here? Oh, that's ash. You don't have a big jump from these people aren't human because I can't wrap my head around a simple fucking concept, and to people getting murdered. And the reality is we've jumped so many bridges from rhetoric to action now that we're at a place where someone like Newsom doing that is literally a direct threat to people's lives. And it's wild that the Democrats seem to think that is a route that's any way better than the fascists doing what they're doing right now to every one of us, whether we voted for them or not. And frankly, like Newsom, that shit's done. And I think for him, like seeing the pushback, right, even in non-normal, the non like bubbles that I hang out in, let's say, people were lighting his ass on fire, and rightly so. And that is kind of indicative of what we've all been saying this entire time today. This shit is different than 2016, not just on the right. This is different the whole way around because people fundamentally understand in a different way this is an existential threat to our humanity, not just our politics. And a lot of people have realized your humanity is more important than who you voted for. And so we're doing something different, and we're going to keep doing it. But I think this is something far bigger and far angrier than anything. Like 2020 didn't feel this angry, even at the height of, me in a bulletproof vest going down my street here in Minneapolis doing community defense.
Right.
It feels different. And that's very, very interesting.
Let's be honest too. Look, Gavin Newsom, this is he a Democrat? Is he a Republican centrist candidate that might run in 2028? He can raise money. Maybe he can raise $1 billion, and he's gonna get like 0.3% of the vote.
Exactly.
People aren't gonna vote for this. People are done with this.
Well,
nobody wants this.
Nobody. The thing at the end of the day I've been thinking about with that is like if the Republicans know that they can never win again on Trumpism, right? Especially in blue areas, now that this kind of shit is done and they're actually thinking about elections. Let's just take that as something that we don't know right now. But let's say that's what they're doing. Well, if I was going to do that, I would field Democrats that I knew were going to be sympathetic and put them up in office and see what happens. And it's what's happened here in Minneapolis during the mayoral stuff that's gone on here with the races here and some of the city council stuff. You start to see that they've realized if they put R next to their name, they aren't going to win. It's a toxic commodity here. And I would expect as this gets more and more out of hand on the Republican side, we're going to see some of this centrist deflection to the right turn into actual, like, I'm going to run as a conservative Democrat against this Democrat. And that's a different kind of fight for all of our politics, because that's a three-way fight then for a majority of the population against two corporate entities that have increasingly right-wing views. That's a different world than the one we've lived in here, ever. At least in its honesty. It might be how it's run kind of behind the scenes for a while. We may never know. But the reality is that's the thing that this really looks like it's going towards, unless people decide to say, cool, we're going to fracture the party and make you,
I think
make you
that's
go.
coming
I
because
think it's
we're
gonna happen.
starting to see stuff like, I mean, practically every Tesla dealership in the country has protests outside
Yep.
it now on the
Yep.
weekends. It's nuts that this Tesla takedown thing is working as well as it is, but it is. You're starting to see this everywhere now. You're starting
Because
to
people
see,
are angry.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that's and it's real, it's out there, and it's justified, and like the crazy has gone too far. The bullshit they thought they could paper over and pretend like it's not that bad. It's just beyond that. You cannot control this anymore.
No. And that was, I mean, I think, I've said this now. Well, we're on week 5 of me saying this is going to get out of their hands. This has now gotten out of their hands. And, the thing is, once people make the turn towards they're not doing enough, the minute you start to say, tut, tut, you're doing too much, or we don't like the way you're doing it, you're not coming
right.
back towards them ever again. And you're not going further right generally. You're just moving further away from this works. And that's a problem for all of us just with democracy. But at the same time, I think we're in the middle of a redefinition.
Mhm.
And it was forced on us, but now we're trying to redefine what it means to be truly the democracy we want. And that's going to be a fight. And everyone needs to know, I think, the reality that we've talked about and jumped around, but like this is going to turn into a fight, and it's going to be something a little bit different than we've ever dealt with here. But, when you've got stuff like, researchers and doctors today is Friday while we're recording, are out in mass across the country marching, and there are tens of thousands of them
Mhm.
out marching today. There were thousands of people out yesterday, whether it was doing Tesla takedowns, whether it was doing street marches for democracy, whether it was getting together with National Institute of Health people. This is happening all over, and we have to understand the media is not going to be our friends like it was in 2020, because this isn't a shiny object to use against a perceived enemy where you can make money. This is starting to be something where it's against the structure of how we've done capital and consumerization in the way that we've seen it. And people aren't thinking about it that way. But we can start to see the lines that are stratifying through the movements and things coming together. And the argument, the overarching theme and argument is oligarch bad, no kings, take your shit elsewhere, we will take your shit elsewhere for
Mhm.
you. That's a very different country than we were 6 weeks ago.
Well, and I think your point about monetization is really valid. I remember at the height of 2020 being in a Nordstrom store, which is a very, very high-end retail shop. If you've never been there, they sell clothes and it's pretty high-end. And they had ornaments, little hang things for Black Lives Matter, made
Yeah.
in China. And
Yeah.
I found myself just thinking, like, this is a marketing thing for a lot of these people. There's a reason why a lot of companies got behind it, was because they could sell it.
Yeah.
There's nothing to sell here.
No.
There's nothing they can monetize. This is just pissed.
Well, yeah,
And
you don't
yeah,
want to monetize rage at yourself, because this country, if you monetize rage at yourself, it does actually work.
and it's
And
striking how little coverage this stuff has gotten compared to certain other protests that have happened.
well, yeah, and it's international now, right? Like it's not just here. There's we're starting to see the French, God bless them. They're starting to burn
Oui.
down Teslas and dealerships, and they're really making it about a call against fascism, but also the damage done by a headlong rush into commodifying the future. And that's a really interesting argument, right? Like I don't normally go for don't, towards a dealership is not the route that Americans look at things. It's the French view, and for the first time, there's a coherent message that isn't just some form of single form protest. This is more a view of like we've overstepped into something we don't understand, and it's dangerous because we don't understand it, and we don't know what the capital does beside it beyond make it fascist as hell.
And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that at least in Washington state, there's a weird loophole in the law that allows car companies to sell cars directly to consumers. Tesla owns all of their
Interesting.
dealerships here in Washington. Elon Musk owns all of their dealerships here in Washington. Just putting that out there. Just putting that out there.
That's really, I didn't
Do with
actually
that
know though that
information
you
what
guys
you
had a
will.
loophole. So literally Tesla
Mhm.
itself is selling the
Yeah,
cars there
Tesla.
versus a dealership
Correct.
structure somewhere
Correct.
else. Interesting.
Most states don't let
That
this
is
go.
interesting.
Most states, the auto industry lobby is so strong, they don't let this
Right.
happen. Washington, don't know how it happened, but it is.
They do.
Mhm.
Well, and
So Elon
what's
owns
interesting
all
on
the
that
dealerships here.
No, that's an interesting point. And I think that's the point too that like a lot of people have made, right? Is like there's a direct link now people are making between their material life being worse and that individual billionaire's life being better. And that's one of those ones in this country, at least, like none of us in our lives have actually seen a moment where capitalism, it's not just the critique that the nerds and the theory guys do, but there's like an on the street component of that critique, which is really interesting in that we've seen people shift from being somewhat like broken windowsy about certain things to more looking at it like, okay, well, where do we sit? And these are all just brand new conversations for Americans for the most part. There are some people who've lived in this world for a long time and, you know, God bless them for living out in the outskirts of the political wasteland. But the country's kind of caught up to, I think, some of the what we've called progressive ideas in that, like, they were never progressive, they were bare minimums.
Yep.
And we've really, you know, hit a point now where most people can see that in their everyday life, whether it's Trump take egg or my car payment, if I want to buy a new car, is going to be $12,000 more because Donnie Walnuts is mad at Canada being a fucking sovereign nation. Like it's just, you know, you start to get past the point where like politics as we've understood them can hold up. And we're seeing that.